So that's a wrap. 2021 is gone. Now we look forward into the future, into what 2022 has to offer. And this video is all about me sharing my 2022 sustainable living goals with you so that you can see what I have planned for the year ahead. And also, maybe some of my goals can inspire you to broaden your horizons and take on some goals and challenges that you might not have thought you were able to do before. So sit tight. I'm going to get through this quickly so that I don't take up too much of your time. But I do think it's important that I share this with you so that we can share our collective vision together and ultimately, as a community, start creating more sustainable lifestyles throughout South Africa and throughout the world. So the way I handle this is breaking up my sustainability journey into 6 key pillars. And that is growing your own food, which is naturally a big part of living sustainably, sourcing a lot of my own water, looking at alternative power and energy supplies, looking at livestock, for me, realistically within an urban environment, city living, chickens, composting, and then, quite importantly, sustainable living. I'm talking about products that you use on a daily basis to clean yourself within the house, just how to transform the way you live into a more sustainable way of living. Those are the 6 key pillars. I'm going to talk you through my goals of each one quickly, and then hopefully you got some cool ideas to get you into the new year ahead. So let's talk water. One of the most valuable resources on planet Earth. Also, probably the most important resource when it comes to sustainable living. Not only for these luscious green edible plants in front of me, but cleaning clothes, cleaning dishes, cleaning anything in your house, making breads, making foods, everything requires water. So the more sustainable we can be with our water, the more sustainable we can be with the way we're living. My goals for 2022 when it comes to water is, firstly, the food forest area here, I'm aiming to be 100% supplied by grey water from the house, specifically bath and showering. And I'll talk about that in the sustainable living section, where we now only use natural and biodegradable body products in showers and baths and teeth and all of that. But that's goal number 1 for water, is that this whole area is to be completely watered by grey water. My second goal for watering in 2022 is to, throughout the year and the various seasons, accurately measure how much water I use and the garden needs. I'm going to be putting on flow meters on my various devices to see how much water I actually consume, primarily in the garden. And what I want to then do in subsequent years is make sure that I have enough water storage facility on my property to be able to see me through. I'm not going to go head first into this and just start getting a whole bunch of tanks and all of this stuff, water supplies, infrastructure. That's going to be a waste of time and a waste of money. What I want to do is first figure out how much I'm using and then start accommodating and supplementing that. I do have one 5,000 litre tank, and it was full at the end of winter. It took about 2 weeks and it was empty just from garden use. That being said, it was also supplying the food forest, which is quite a big area and can't have drip irrigation in certain places. So it does take a lot of water. So 2 goals: feed this with water supply from the house and correctly measure all of the water that I'm using to make sure that for future years I can accommodate the water needs with rainwater harvesting and storage from the tanks and other various resources that I can get my hands on one way or another. Now let's talk urban chickens. So I've already become completely self-reliant on chicken eggs. They are amazing, they're dense, nutritious. We haven't bought an egg for almost a year now. So a very important part of my sustainability journey is clean eating. These ladies have given me the ability to do that. But what are my goals when it comes to the chickens for this year? That is to supplement chicken feed as much as possible through what I can grow. I'll do a video for you, but basically in the back section here, I'm creating blocks where I'm going to create little sections of growth with barley and other kinds of grains. And the idea is open one, let them come in, harvest and take whatever they want, close it up, put some seeds down, then the next time they go to the next one, and so forth. So we have a little system going where they always have fresh produce coming from here. Also planting out in the food forest, kale and other foods that they love. And then trying to find ways to supplement their grains as much as possible. So that is my chicken goal for 2022, to be able to give these ladies a lot more than what they're currently getting and not having to buy in as much feed as I'm currently having to do. So now we're on to the next goal, which is trying to convert the sun into power, which for me personally is a huge challenge. And the reason being, in South Africa, it is still not cost effective to go solar. The cost of electricity to the cost of alternative energy sources is still not quite on par, where the spend on electricity, you can get your return if you look at alternative energy suppliers. That being said, one of my goals for 2022 with energy is to measure exactly how much I'm using. I'm already using a geyser timer, which is saving a huge amount of electricity. So we only have it on for 3 hours a day in late afternoon, early evening. And now what I want to do is daily measuring of the amount of units that I've used. I want to convert that into kilowatts or whatever the requirement is, and then see what my options are. We get a huge amount of wind here, summer and winter. We very seldom have lulls in wind. So for me, an option might be a wind turbine. They're quite effective, but then again, I also need to look at the solar option. But that being said, to be able to do it properly, you need to know what your needs are to be able to supplement that. So that's my electricity goal for this year, is to know by the end of the year exactly what my electrical requirements are, and then moving into next year, start looking at what options there are to go more off-grid or more hybrid electricity style. So now let's talk about the option that I'm sure most of you have been waiting for, and that is my growing food goals. So for me, I have to be realistic. I don't live on a big plot, don't have a small holding, don't have a farm. So what I grow, it has to be realistic in terms of what I want to get out of it. Self-sufficiency, is that a goal? Maybe long term, but considering where I am now, self-sufficiency is probably never gonna happen. It's just not possible. However, what I want to do is I want to look at achieving some selective self-sufficiencies when it comes to certain types of crops. So my goals for this year when it comes to growing my own food is to become completely self-sufficient with any bulb veg. So carrots, beetroots, onions, garlic. The other thing I want to become completely self-sufficient in is chilies. We've got quite a few growing now, and my hope is we're going to be growing enough to be able to dry them, powder them, preserve them, eat them fresh. No matter how we plan on using them, that we would have enough chilies to see us through and never need to buy another chili again. And then one that's very close to my heart and very important for me is berries. Berries cost an absolute fortune, yet they're also one of the most abundant plants in nature. If you plant one blackberry bush, you are going to get so many blackberries that you're going to get sick of them. So I have blackberries, red raspberries, black raspberries, golden raspberries, elderberries. There are so many different types of berries, and they are scattered all over the garden. And my hope is that within this year, I become completely self-sufficient on berries, that we would never need to buy any of those again. As the harvests come in, we obviously eat them, then freeze them for smoothies or anything like that. But the idea is hopefully never to buy another berry. And then finally, one of my big goals for this year is to become completely pesticide free. Now, those of you that have been watching my videos will know that I don't use any chemicals. The pesticides or insecticides I do use are all organic, primarily just neem oil. However, this year, and we are halfway through summer already, I haven't sprayed once, and I have had no issues in the garden. That being said, it's also the first time I've seen such a wide range of predatory insects. I've seen so many different types of wasps. We have black soldier flies, we have dragonflies. There's such an abundance of life in the garden, and that's my goal, is to, as much as possible, never have to rely on any kind of application to be able to control bugs. The whole theory is, as soon as nature creates its own balance, anything that becomes out of balance will eventually be restored. For instance, if there's a huge amount of aphids, you're going to start getting more ladybugs and more of those bugs in, and then the balance will restore itself. As soon as you spray and you kill off your whole aphid family in the whole garden, all of those predators disappear as well. So that's a major goal of mine in the garden, growing food for this year. My composting goal for 2022 is pretty straightforward, and that is to never have to buy any compost ever again. I want this compost pile, which is my hot compost pile, and my bokashi compost pile, to completely supply the garden of all its nutritional needs. A full autumn and a full spring application of compost, my plan and hope for 2022's, and I'm going to show you something awesome. So what I'm going to do is just put it in here, do a quick lift, and hopefully you can see on the camera. Not sure if you can, but there is a huge amount of steam coming out of this. This pile is about 2 weeks old, and we keep adding on top. And at the bottom, it's basically usable compost already. So hot composting, bokashi composting, two very different composting systems. However, this is purely garden waste. So leaves, browns, leaves and grass, greens, and all the food that's fermented goes into bokashi. However, my goal is that they supply the garden with everything it needs for all of our food production. And then last but not least, it is sustainable living. How I want to do that is primarily through switching up products. My biggest goal for sustainable living in 2022 is to become as chemical free as possible. Now I'm talking shampoo, conditioner, soap, body wash, toothpaste, cleaning liquids, clothing detergent. The list actually just goes on and on and on. It's crazy when you think of the amount of products that we use in the house that consume a monumental amount of chemicals. And in essence, those chemicals we put onto or into our bodies. My biggest sustainability goal for 2022 is to cut that out. So I'm already trialing a few different products for my body. I'm using an amazing soap that only contains natural ingredients, is completely biodegradable. I personally have found it to be incredibly friendly on my skin. Both my kids suffer from eczema. They both use this soap now, and in the last week they've had no eczema. So that's a pretty amazing, pretty quick result without even switching because of something, and we're seeing a result. Shampoo, haven't used chemical shampoo in the last 2 weeks. My hair is clean. I actually have less of an issue with dry scalp using the natural products compared to the chemical ones. The chemical ones, I tend to always have to use something else to combat dry scalp, which then makes hair oily, and then you got to combat with oily hair. And it becomes this whole product bolt-on system, which quite honestly in the last 2 weeks since switching to a completely natural shampoo, I haven't had. It's something that's quite foreign because that's not what we taught or how we are thought to believe. So it's quite nice going through this adventure in testing products, seeing how they react with your body and your skin, and it's quite amazing. So that's already something I've switched out. I also want to, in terms of sustainable living, make sure that at least once a week I do a hand wash of my own clothing. I've got one of those drums that you turn. They're pretty epic. I find them to be pretty efficient at how well they clean. Some people love them, some people hate them. That's perfectly fine. So one of the goals is to at least once a week do a load of washing manually, and then use all that water then that goes back into the food forest that I was telling you about, just to close a little bit of the loop, not be reliant on external sources like external water, because I'll use that from the water tanks, and then external electricity I can just use a little bit of weak muscle that I have in my arms. So those are some of my sustainable living goals, obviously, and then looking at some of the household things, cleaning, detergents, clothing, all of that stuff. I'm going to, in this year, start looking at what options there are, testing them to see what fits in with our lifestyle. Because that's the thing, is within an urban environment, city living, kids, fast-paced life, it's the compromise of being completely sustainable with the way you live, and also being realistic with the way and the way that we live in urban environments with the busy lives that we lead. And for me, it's finding that middle ground between achieving the goals I want to achieve, making an impact on the environment and my immediate surroundings, but then also being able to fit into the urban living environment and ultimately system that we live in, to not be too disruptive. So there we go. Those are my goals for this year, my sustainability living goals. I hope they've inspired you to possibly think about something you might not have before. And even if it's just a matter of finding one thing out of there that you want to give a go, one of those could make quite a big impact if a lot of people decide to try it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you got any questions, or if you want to let me know what some of your goals are for this year, please let me know. I would love to hear what your goals are with sustainable living in the year 2022. And please subscribe to my channel, because everything I've spoken about, I'm going to be documenting in videos so that you can see how my journey progresses and how I develop in terms of the way that I live in my attempts to become significantly more sustainable. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.